Hi everyone. Today we have Mr. Shivesh Anand sharing with everything you must have seen in the introduction. So hi Shivesh, how are you doing? And I mean, how is it out there?
It's good. I'm doing well. Thank you for the invitation. I'm really happy to be here and having the next discussions with you.
Yeah, sure. Uh, so I mean, we can just start about telling about bit about yourself first, and then how like from uh, doing your bachelor's in India and then moving abroad. We shall cover each and every journey of yours. So we can start with your introduction first, so that like people can relate to on that.
Mhm. Okay, so I come from India, from the state of Jharkhand. I grew up in a small town called Bokaro. Now my parents have moved to Ranchi, so I call myself from Ranchi. But then I did all my schooling in Bokaro. After that, I did my bachelor's, and it was an integrated master's program at BITS Pilani. And there I studied bachelor's in electrical engineering and master's in chemistry. It was a 5 year program. Um, and then we had BITS has this really flexible system which allows you to either spend 2 semesters for research or the internships in companies, which is called practice schools. I was more inclined towards the research side. So I decided to spend 2 semesters focusing on getting a better lab experience in terms of trying to explore new techniques that would allow me to combine both of these diverse disciplines that I had,
Yeah,
electrical and chemistry. Um, and the topics that I had in mind was more along the lines of flexible electronics, biomedical devices. So I chose a lab in Boston. This was in Harvard MIT Health Sciences and Technology. That was working along these directions as well. So I went to Boston. This was back in 2016. Um, yeah, so that's where I was introduced to the field of tissue engineering. I I don't think back then I really understood what the field meant.
yeah,
So it was a really new experience for me. But then while I was in Boston, I really enjoyed uh, yeah, getting more familiar with the things that people do in engineering, more in terms of what the global or overall intention of this field is, and that pushed me to continue within the field of regenerative medicine and tissue engineering. So after my time in Boston, I wanted to stay in the field, but then also coming from a very different background, with
yeah,
no experience in biology, it wasn't going to be easy. So I thought probably I should make sure that I really enjoy the field. And that's why I decided maybe I should probably do a couple of research assistantships to see that if this is a field that I want to commit to for my larger research plan. So I did a couple of those positions. The first one was in Singapore, and then next I moved to Spain. There's a bioengineering institute in Barcelona. And yeah, by then, like this was for 1.5 years that I was working in this similar topics, and I was like, okay, yeah, I think I am still enjoying it, and I feel more confident of my skills,
mm-hmm.
and I'm still able to use what I learned during my engineering. So I think it's something that I would like to pursue, and that's when I went for my PhD uh, in regenerative medicine. This was in Netherlands. This institute focused entirely on technology-inspired regenerative medicine technologies. This is in Maastricht. So that's where I did my PhD. And yeah, now I'm in a postdoctoral position in Stanford. I had a smaller postdoctoral position in Denmark, but now I've
Mm-hmm.
been at Stanford for like 1 year, 4 months, something like that.
Yeah. Wow, I mean, that's been quite a journey. Like, I really want to dive into which I think many people would relate to that you come from an electrical engineering and chemistry background, right?
Mhm.
How hard was it for you to switch for tissue engineering? Because as coming from a PCB or even like a biotech background myself, I just feel like even though I've been in biotechnology, it's very tough to choose outside field. Like for example, if I just tell you about myself, when I did my started my bachelor's in 2021, I was like very I had no idea about what is bioinformatics. At that
Mhm.
time, it was not very much viable. But you in 20 like 11, I think you started with your college,
Mhm.
2012 11, and then like switching your fields towards a totally a new thing. Like, I just want to know what were the challenges behind that, because even though many people would say that they like particular thing, but it's very hard to switch towards them, right? Since you don't have any background knowledge of it. So how did you develop some kind of thing, or you learned from books? So how was the journey behind that?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think initially when I joined the lab in Boston, I had the idea in mind that I will be working more on flexible electronics because the lab had different subgroups and one of them was flexible electronics.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I ended up being in the subgroup which was tissue engineering. And to be very honest, initially, I think I was lucky that rather than throwing, like my supervisor, rather than throwing me into hardcore biology, I was more on the biofabrication side. And it has always been the field that I have always been within the tissue engineering specialization. So um, coming from the electrical engineering background or chemistry background to biofabrication was relatable because in the end I was still working with technologies such as 3D printers. I was still doing hydrogel synthesis, which was a lot more chemistry. So I was able to relate to those techniques. It was again something very new that I hadn't done before, but I was able to relate to because working with bioprinters back then was you had to write your own G codes, and there were not many automated systems. So it was still
Yeah.
needing some programming skills. But then when it came to biology, I was completely clueless. Like, to be very
Yeah.
honest,
Exactly.
up until then, I had never seen a cell in a microscope. Maybe back in the school they would have shown something. I honestly didn't recall. But I had never seen how live cells would look like, how you can culture them. I had no idea of any of the techniques that would follow the cell culture. So those things were very new with no background. So I had to rely a lot on my lab colleagues to teach me the techniques, but then also do a lot of background reading to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And yeah, it took a while, but then that's why even when I was enjoying the field, I wasn't really sure that if this is the direction that I want to pursue because there was the whole application or the whole I would say the core of the field was something new for me. Like that's biology.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's why I had to undergo research assistantships to make sure that not just I'm familiar with the field, but also I'm able to relate to and able to apply my skills in yeah, like to be able to contribute to the field.
Okay. So as I looked at your journey, it's like you must have thought about research. Like, firstly, as we all know, like at back then, I don't think research was such a big thing, which is I think right now in terms of facilities available. At that time, at that point of time, what do you thought that I really want to go for PhD? I mean, that might also be a tough decision for you, I would say. Or like, how was it like choosing PhD?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I think back during my BITS, like back since I was at BITS, I was drawn towards research. So even for example, I like BITS has practice schools program. So you have the practice school in the 5th year,
Mm-hmm.
but then that's called PS2. You also have practice school during your second, third year. That's PS1, second year. And even for that PS1, I wanted to choose a research institute rather than going to a company because you could choose, I think, I don't recall how many options, but I'm guessing around 150 options that you could fill in, and then based on your CGPA, they allot you. And even there, all my higher preferences were research institutes because I felt that I enjoyed being in the lab. So I did my first summer internship at NCL, that's the CSIR lab in Pune, National Chemical Lab.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was an amazing experience. It was hardcore chemistry, inorganic chemistry, but then I really enjoyed that experience. So for my next internship, I went to CD, which is again a CSIR lab, but focused
Yeah.
on electronics. That's in Pilani. So again, very great experience. And then the final one I did in IIRS, that's Indian Institute of Remote Sensing in Dehradun. So it's a research institute from ISRO. So I think these internships made me really realize that I enjoy research, So that's one aspect. And the other aspect was I was never drawn to 9 to 5 jobs. So even when my friends were preparing for placements and they had that as one of their
Yeah.
main motivations, I never felt drawn to the fact that I'll be. I saw the financial aspect of it, but it wasn't really drawing to me. And I was like, at least at the moment, I don't feel inclined to go into that path. And to be very honest, 10 years later, I still don't feel inclined to go into that path. So I still don't feel very, like drawn towards the industry side. It might change. I don't know. It's hard to say. But then at least up until now, I'm still enjoying the research. So yeah, I think it's a combination of both these factors, like the initial exposure that I got. Also, I should add that BITS has had or has good research facilities, so
True.
you could choose lab-oriented projects. We used to call them LOPs or SOPs. Those were study-oriented projects. So even while you were doing your normal coursework, you could work with professors who would allow you to take projects within their labs. So I think also these experiences helped me to see how research works, because then you are working under the supervision of the professors, the PhD students.
Yeah.
So like we had a close connection in terms of having seen how research life works. And I think I always was drawn towards that side of academics.
Oh, I mean that's really great that you are still loving and passionate about research, and that's what you are currently doing. I don't think so many people still follow that path, but yeah. Anyways, so I think after your college, you secured an internship, right? Like you worked as a research trainee at Harvard, MIT Health Science and Technology. Like, let's just put some light on that, because as a student, if I just tell anyone regarding Harvard, they would just be very fascinated by just the word, because it's like a top Ivy League. How was it when you just got in? Because as a student, when you were like, it must be through application portal or something, or was it from like tie-up with any college or something, like from your
No, this
college?
was just cold emailing, honestly. So I think I should mention that I did get help in terms of identifying the labs that could work for me from one of an older alumni. I think he was 1 year ahead of me, and back then he was doing a PhD at Caltech, and his lab was looking for researchers intern basically. So I reached out to him for that, and that didn't work out. But then he suggested a couple of other labs that I could reach out to. And this was the lab that he did his thesis at when he was before starting his PhD. So I think he was maybe a couple of years ahead. But yeah, like I think maybe 1 year ahead. But then he was single degree, so 4-year program, something like that. But yeah, so then I, based on his advice, I reached out to the labs, and then it just worked out. To be very honest, I feel that there was a luck factor involved here, because those professors receive a lot of emails, and yeah, you have to put together your application in the best possible way. But yeah, it's really hard to predict when you're relying on cold emails, because everything has to align. Like, of course, you can't leave any gap on your side in terms of your preparation of application, your cover letter and everything. But then it also has to be aligned with the fact that the professor opens the email, checks it out. So yeah, and so there's no denying that. Yeah, it has to be like some factor of luck involved so that everything works out.
I mean, you just talked about luck. Like, that was gonna be my question at the end of it. Like, do you think luck plays a role in that? Because honestly, see, cold email is one thing that 100 people can definitely do, but how good the candidate is, you cannot just figure out by just reading the subject of cold email, right? So I just feel like luck is definitely there in some way or other.
Yeah, I think while looking for positions, for sure, there is that involved.
100%.
Yeah, and because it's not just the fact that if the professor has the time to check your profile, but also the fact that is he looking for people? Because it could be
True.
that you're a very good fit for the lab, and the lab is a very good fit for you. But if the lab doesn't have an opening, then it doesn't matter how good the matching
True.
is. So for sure there is luck involved, and it happens. It happened, or I would say it happens on each stage when you're looking for a position. Because when I was looking for the research assistantship, it was again that this process came into picture. When I was looking for the PhD position, it was again because uh, unlike so I when I was looking for PhDs, I solely focused on European positions
Hmm.
because I didn't want to get into the American system of applying to grad school, which was a lot
Yeah.
more preparation based process, because I was working full time and it was just like I never had the time to
Hmm.
take the GRE, do all those 6 months in advance.
Yeah.
So for looking for PhD's position in Europe, I don't know if it has changed. Maybe it has slightly changed, but back then it was mostly relying on again cold emailings based on the fact if you think they might have an opening and if you think you are a good fit. So on all these different stages, again, when looking for postdoc positions, is the same process. So
Yeah.
it is involved, but then you just make sure that you are doing the part on your side as well or as good as you can, because uh yeah, like you shouldn't like leave any gap from your side, and then let's hope that
Yeah,
everything.
obviously.
So,
I
yeah,
mean, obviously, it's not only about luck and luck. It's about the process that you follow behind that as well. Because I think equally it just plays a role. And obviously, you cannot solely be dependent on luck as well if your documentation or even your cold email does not struck to the professor.
exactly. I
Okay,
think
so
one thing that I would like to add there is like how I
yeah.
used to convince myself is that okay, um maybe you're sending 20 emails, 40 emails, but
Hmm.
at the end of the day you just need one.
True.
So and it's not about how many you send. It could be very like for my postdocs, for example, or also during the Boston position, it wasn't that I sent a huge chunk of emails. Probably
Hmm.
it was tailored to what the lab might be looking at. So it's very important that rather than focusing on how many emails you send or how many applications or how many positions you're applying for, make sure that you are a really good fit. Uh,
True.
and yeah, like if you can explore networks from yes from somewhere, that helps. But yeah, so the focus should be that how you can really demonstrate that you will be a good fit in just
Hmm.
one email.
Yeah. So, firstly, let's just talk about the environment that you must have seen there in Cambridge versus if you just compare it with India according to the lab facilities, because that was the first time you probably been abroad for working
Yeah,
as an intern. Let's just compare the scenarios, what you have seen in India versus what you have seen in there, and in
yeah,
terms of culture as well.
yeah. That was, I would say, uh, quite a big difference. I think for me, that experience was even like the difference that I saw in terms of the experience was even more intensified because the labs that I worked at previously were of very different kinds. So either I was in pure electronics lab or pure chemistry lab. So for me, just the fact of the things that we were doing in this lab, it was already all
Hmm.
new techniques and new approaches and new ideas, very different than what I have seen in the past. But then also adding to the fact that the cultural aspect was very different as well. So yeah, I would say like it for sure. It took me a few months, like couple of months for sure, just to
Hmm.
get used to the system. Um, yeah, like one example that I would like to mention here is like um, it was really difficult for me, for example, to refer or to speak with my supervisor with first name basis. Like that was one of the things that I recall now,
Yeah.
because growing up in India, you always
Yeah.
refer to them with like with respect. Anyone
Correct.
that's elder to you, you have like it was really unnatural for me to do
Hmm.
that, and it was really unnatural for them to be called sir or ma'am. So yeah, I think that was one thing which probably took, like smaller things like that, which doesn't really affect much, but then those things you do have to, it makes you realize that yeah, the systems are very different, and yeah, you have to integrate into the system by making these smaller changes, which I think it makes sense, but then it's just very different to what we are used to.
Wow. So after you finished your research trainee work at Cambridge, why Singapore? I mean, is it something that you thought before that, or is what like it just was an opening and you just applied there and you just got in, or you applied at multiple places and then you figured out that okay, I want to go there?
Uh, so I'll be very honest. I think back then, I would have just preferred to stay in the US. Um, yeah, like it wasn't my goal to go to other places and then explore. I think I just wanted to stay there. But the visa regulations made it really difficult because I was on an exchange visitor visa. It's called J1, and within J1, I was in J1 student, J1 intern, which is student intern visa. And it just, that visa category didn't allow me to extend the visa. Like, I will have to come back to India, apply for a new one, and even for applying for a new one, there was a regulation that I had to wait for 12 months or something like that. So it was just complicated for me to extend my stay in the US as a research assistant, and that's when I started to look for positions outside. Why Singapore? I had never been to Singapore back then. I had limited knowledge about Singapore, but then that was also one of the first applications that I sent out, and that was one of the first acceptances that I had as well. And overall, it just felt like, yeah, it's worth a try. It matches with what I have been doing here. Back then, I was working with using gelatin methacrylate, which is GELMA, for bioprinting applications. And back then, GELMA wasn't as commonly used as it's now. So they were looking for someone who can help them in synthesizing this material. And my lab in Boston was one of the first labs that started to work with GELMA for tissue engineering applications. So most of the projects there were very GELMA focused. So everyone was doing GELMA. So we were very familiar with this hydrogel. So yeah, that's how I ended up there. Yeah.
And you were just there for 3 months?
I was there for, like 2.5 months, 3 months.
So like while being in there, you applied for a PhD position, or you just thought of that, okay, now I have prepared myself for a PhD and I shall just go in? Like, what was it like?
So when I was there, I was still, I enjoyed my stay in Singapore. And like something which I don't have on my CV mentioned between Singapore and Spain. Like I moved to Barcelona for another research assistantship after this, but something which I had between these two was I had a 1 month visiting researcher. It wasn't really an official position. It was just like an exploratory position that I had in Moscow, in Russia. And that was with one of the one of the pioneers of bioprinting. So while I was applying for positions in Singapore, I got for my research assistantship, while I was in Boston applying for different positions, I was also in touch with the professor, one of the pioneers of bioprinting back in 2003. And then he offered me this. I felt like it was a really cool opportunity where I could come and see how they work in Russia. So before, he was based in the US, and then he had moved to Moscow with a small bioprinting company. And it was just like a 1 month. I wouldn't even call it a position. It was not even like, there was no contract, there was nothing. It was just for me to go and see what they're doing, how they do it. And I felt really like a cool opportunity where I could work with this person that I have always read about. So that's when I just decided that maybe I can quit the position in Singapore and then I can go, because it seems like a great opportunity. And then when I was there, the next thing happened, and so it wasn't it like if you ask me now, like it if I would have planned this, it would have been almost impossible to do it. But I was
Yeah,
just going
exactly.
with the flow, and I was like, okay, yeah, this seems cool, and I'm liking it. Let's do it. And yeah, like at 23, 24, you're not really looking deep into the future. I was just
Yeah.
enjoying the science, and I was just going with the flow. And I was like, okay, all of these different opportunities allow me to learn new things, and
Mhm.
being so new in the field, that's what I need at the moment. So yeah, let's just go wherever it takes you.
So when you were in Singapore, it must have been a full-time position, right? So was
Yeah.
it like it must be tough for you to leave that position like in so much time, or was it not like on a basis of like a particular year, or it must be based on a particular project that you must be working on, right?
Yeah, I think I had that for 6 months. Like the contract was for 6 months,
Yeah.
and I had to give a notice for 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it just worked out like that. And that's why I had to uh yeah, like I think if I would have stayed even a bit longer, the notice period would have increased to a month. So it was like,
Mm.
yeah, that kind of it just happened like the alignment that okay, I could leave a bit without
And
yeah.
and then you went for a like a after the Morocco and Russia thing, then you went for a fully fund like PhD, right? And Barcelona. How would
No,
you?
that was a research assistant position as well.
Oh, so you did
Yeah,
your PhD from?
Netherlands.
On, I mean, you have traveled the world around. How was your experience being in Netherlands and about your PhD thing exactly? If you just okay, we'll just do it at last. But like, how is your PhD experience has been in Netherlands?
Oh, that was amazing. I had probably the best time in Netherlands during the PhD. Uh, yeah, like also here it's very nice. I'm really enjoying at
Mm-hmm.
Stanford. It's a very different experience, but I think um, probably in hindsight I will be able to compare better. But like leaving Stanford out for now, and maybe also Boston out, because that was I was still a student back then, so it's difficult to compare.
Yeah.
But I think overall, in terms of purely research experience, I think Netherlands has been the best so far, like undoubtedly. And I like maybe I can use your platform to convey this. I feel like Netherlands is probably the best place to do your PhDs. There's
Mm-hmm.
no competition in that regards by far with any other country, and I can say this with like
Mm-hmm.
200%
I
confidence.
mean, let's just talk on that then. I mean, because I really like want to get like even though the people who would be watching that really want to know exactly the fact why are you so insisting on Netherlands. Like obviously when like what I see currently the trend is Europe. Okay,
Mhm,
honestly speaking, even the people who don't have any idea, and when I ask where do you want to go for even for masters without
mhm,
anything, they would just say Germany, not even Europe. I would say they are firstly like Germany. It's just because mostly that people have heard that okay, there is no tuition fee. Uh,
mhm,
obviously, it's not very easy to get into public university that
mhm,
much. And okay, but why Netherlands? I mean, is it just because of the living thing, or you are because see PhD? What I believe personally is one thing that it totally depends on the PI and the environment that you are working. Country maybe it might be the second choice of the PI because you will never know how is PI like before working, right? So
mhm.
how do you evaluate like what exactly is this position for me based on the experience, even living in Netherlands versus if you have been uh, to many countries before Netherlands as well. So that is why you must be saying. So what are the reasons for that?
Uh, so I would say like Netherlands would beat any country on all the domains, all the
Mm-hmm.
aspects. Probably weather is one thing which is something where it falls. But then maybe I'll go like step by step. I think if you want to move to Europe for masters, then Netherlands is probably not the best option,
Yeah,
because there you still have to pay the tuition fees, and that's quite high.
that's very
So
expensive.
exactly. So I think in that respect, if you can get into public universities in Germany, for sure that would make a lot more sense. But my answer is mostly focused on PhDs.
Yeah.
And maybe now things are changing. Other countries are evolving in terms
Mm-hmm.
of how they are structuring their PhD program. But at least up until 2018, that's when I started my PhD. Yeah, and to be very honest, when I chose Netherlands, I hadn't considered all of these factors. So it's all of these are coming in hindsight now that I
Yeah,
can compare
obviously.
how other countries run their PhD programs. I feel that, yeah, it's one of the best places because in terms of research facilities, it's like, I wouldn't say it's the best, ultimate best, because there are multiple countries that would rank
True,
on the
true.
same scale, um, including the top universities in the US. Like, I don't feel that Netherlands is any less in terms of the research facilities we had there compared to even Stanford, Harvard. Like, it's on the same
Hmm.
scale. There are some things which are easier in these big universities in the US, but overall, the facilities that you receive is on a very similar scale. That's one thing. And also, like, funding is, if you're good, the Dutch government invests a lot in research, in funding good projects. For example, even now, I'm funded by the Dutch government because I did my PhD there, and they have fellowships, they have grants that allows
Hmm.
PhD graduates from the country to go anywhere in the world to conduct their research. So they really ensure that the research environment grows,
Hmm.
and if it needs people to be sent outside the country, they would invest in that as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, but then other than this, um, I feel that the PhD program that has been structured in Netherlands is very, um, like, if you look at the hierarchy, it's very horizontal. So just by
Hmm.
being a PhD candidate in Netherlands, you're already a university staff. You're already a university employee, so you get all the benefits of uh, employee position that anyone else will get,
Hmm.
and that's something which I have not seen in any other country. Like in Denmark or Spain, you it's a mixed concept. Like you are a student, but then you're also like it's not really
Hmm.
clear. And in your day-to-day life, maybe it doesn't affect you as much, but it does because your your pay is better because it has to be paid as per an employee of the university. You have all the benefits that a staff will receive in terms of pension, in terms of insurance. So overall, it just leads to a higher quality of life while being a PhD uh, candidate.
Hmm.
And then, in terms of overall life in Netherlands, I feel it's very sorted. Like it's a small country. It's very
Hmm.
well managed. So things are very easy. I think you don't have to struggle for basic
Hmm.
things. And this becomes really important because when you compare with, like, if I compare with Denmark or Germany, uh, the the system or bureaucracy is on a similar scale, on a similar level. But then language does play a role. So when you
Yeah.
are probably less in Denmark, more in Germany, but then when you have to deal with paperwork in these countries, language at times does become a hurdle. Whereas in Netherlands, that's really straightforward.
Hmm.
I feel a bit sad about this, and I want to probably change this in the future. I know 20 words of Dutch in five years. I didn't take any
Oh.
efforts to learn the language, and I was completely
Hmm.
fine. Like I never had any issue at all. I'm not really proud of this. This should have been better, but then
Hmm.
yeah, like I feel that language also helps in terms of you can just do very well with English. Of course, learning the language helps a lot more to integrate into the society, learn more
Hmm.
about the society. And yeah, I was lucky because the institute that I was at for my PhD was very international. We were like maybe 80% people from abroad.
Hmm.
So that also didn't help me to learn the language.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think all of these factors combined, uh, yeah, I don't see other places that would like that would offer all of these benefits at the same time. Like some countries do it better than the other on certain
Hmm.
aspects, but then yeah, like if you combine everything, I haven't come across. Maybe I'm wrong, but based on my experience, I haven't come across anything else. So yeah, I do
Wow.
highly recommend that as an option.
And then, like, after your PhD, like, as I know you from what you have currently said that you were also like always passionate about what you are currently doing in terms of research. At what time like you switched, like because obviously at different places you must have worked little bit different based on the topic.
Mhm.
Even though like what was your firstly your PhD on? Like if you can just tell
Mhm.
me that.
Yeah, so my PhD was focused on regenerating the eardrum. So the tympanic membrane, the eardrum, and I was mostly focused on the biofabrication side of regeneration. So if patient has a perforated eardrum or damaged eardrum,
Mm-hmm.
and it could be partial perforation or full eardrum damage where you have to uh, do a full tympanic membrane reconstruction. So we were creating strategies or technologies that would allow to create artificial eardrums that could be then implanted into the patient. So
Mm-hmm.
that was my PhD, focusing on different aspects of this in terms of the architecture that we need, the 3D architecture that we need, the
Mm-hmm.
materials that we can use. If when we are implanting, how can we avoid any microbial infections to grow on that? If can we control the immunomodulation in terms of will there be a foreign body response when you're implanting? So taking care of all of these aspects, and then finally also to understand if we are implanting these eardrum implants, can we promote the stem cell regeneration there using acoustic waves? Because the eardrum is constantly stimulated by the sound waves that how we communicate. So can we use those sound waves for regeneration of the stem cells that we are using? So it was like
Mm-hmm.
a complete package on seeing how we
I
can.
mean, it's really fascinating even to hear that. Like in terms of because, uh, I mean, even though when you explained about it, it was more obviously not in terms of very scientific because that would not be able to be understand by many people.
Mhm.
But it just when you are just telling, so what is the biggest hurdle which because it would be like a lab grown tissue, right? Into you are just trying to put that into actual patient for,
Mhm.
and even though it will go for clinical trials, but what was the major thing that you feel during your PhD was the biggest hurdle in solving that?
I think maybe I'll answer more in terms of the broader challenges of tissue
Mm-hmm.
engineering for different tissue
Yeah.
applications. I think compared to most tissues, the tympanic membrane or eardrum is slightly simpler because it's really thin. So
Mm.
the entire biological construction is also very similar. You just like simpler. You have just three layers of cells and that's it. So the challenges in terms of vascularization, which is one of the most important challenges that people are working with within tissue engineering, wasn't really an issue for the eardrum because the tissue is so
Mm-hmm.
thin. So even if you lab grow this tissue,
Mm-hmm.
you don't really have to be concerned about that. Will the nutrients travel to the core of the tissue? Because it's really hard to
Yeah.
create the vasculature that will be needed for that. So I was lucky in that respect. But the other challenge that tissue engineers have been struggling with is the immunomodulation. So even if you have created a tissue that, as per us, is fully functional, fully
Mm-hmm.
biomimetic in terms of what we have inside the body also has to feel that. So it doesn't have to treat it like something external, something foreign. Um, and that's one of the biggest challenges because if the body thinks that it doesn't belong here, it puts all its efforts in just getting rid of that. Uh, so for those constructs to work, they have to signal to the body that we are a part of you and
Mm-hmm.
you shouldn't really discard us and send those immunomodulation signals that, yeah, we want to be integrated. So that's another challenge that how can you do that and do that for a sustained period of time until the body actually starts working with the implant that we have rather than working against it.
Oh, that sounds really interesting to me. So cool. So like after your PhD thing, you definitely was thinking about postdoc, right? And you were very clear in your head, right? Uh, do you think like let's just talk only about PhD for now? Like, what do you think? What is the importance of PI? uh, in that, because that's what I think mostly I feel your PhD environment really depends on that. And you
Mhm.
never know, even if you get stuck with a PI, you need to complete your PhD. So what is the importance of PI, and also the environment of labs? Because and see, let's just not compare it with India, but from what I've known and what I've seen personally, personal experience with working in labs with in IIT and even in CSIR labs, I've seen like there is a huge amount of pressure, and even the administration thing is really slow if we just
Mhm.
compare in terms of funding. I've seen when I was in my bachelor second year, my guide used to buy mice from her own pocket, just because the administration was very delayed, like for 6 months.
Mhm.
I've seen there are many stories such like I have heard. uh, what do you think, how is the cultural difference in terms of the, because obviously you have not worked in India as PhD, but still like you may have seen or heard stories. What do you think is the role of PI, and what is the major difference which you feel which can be improved? I mean, many people know it can be improved, but obviously it's not improving. But yeah, I mean, let's just talk on that.
Yeah, I think, like, to be very honest, it will be, as you mentioned, difficult for me to compare the two systems
Mm-hmm.
because all the lab experience or research experience that I have in India was as an undergrad
Yeah,
intern,
true.
or so the like I wouldn't be given the same importance because I wasn't really,
Yeah,
helping in actual data generation. It was more a
mm-hmm.
learning experience for me. Like
True.
did, it did end up in a couple of publications, but yeah, the lab wasn't focused on me, so it's really hard for
Mm-hmm.
me to compare. But I completely agree that a PhD program, especially, is very dependent on the environment that we are in, um, and of course, the PI is one of the main factors there, but then also the lab environment. Again, I feel, because I think it's something that you have mentioned before, is that when we are sending those emails, we don't really know how the PI is. Like
Exactly.
we have seen the
Yeah.
research, we have seen the papers, we have seen that okay, maybe we can fit in, but then we don't know if it's going to be a good match in terms of personalities as
Mm-hmm.
well, and that's another gamble. That's another risk. There are multiple approaches to minimize the risk. You can speak to lab members when you go there for interviews. You will have a first-hand experience as well.
Yeah.
You can, before going there, you can speak with lab members. After coming back from your interview, you can speak with lab members. I think in all of these respects, like, you can minimize the risk, but then it's never possible to completely uh, like say with confidence, oh, this is the best match ever.
Mm-hmm.
um like, speaking from my personal experience, I feel that I was very lucky. uh I think overall the institute that I was in has been designed in a way that every PhD student or candidate will have two PIs. uh so I think that system really helps, because yeah, like I think it just allows you to work with two different personalities, and
Mm-hmm.
then since the three of us, or three of you us, yeah, are a team, it just becomes a bit more balanced than if it was just two people. And I think in my case, I feel I was very lucky because the two supervisors that I had a bit of a different approach. So one of them
Mm-hmm.
was more a big picture um, supervisor, and the other was more how can we tackle this on a day-to-day basis. So that allowed me to have a very complete picture of the direction that we were going in. Yeah, and I think for sure, if every place can have this two, like it at times probably it is a bit difficult to coordinate when you have two supervisors. That means you have two people to keep
Yeah.
happy. But then I think overall, uh, when you're working in a group of three, I feel it just becomes a lot more uh, easier to match to work with each other's expectations,
Mm-hmm.
because it can be sometimes that maybe I don't agree with something with what one of my PIs mentioned, but maybe the other PI doesn't agree either. So they
Yeah.
can convince each other, and I don't have to really be the one fighting that battle. So I think it really helps in that respect. Yeah, so I think
Mm-hmm.
overall the lab environment and the PI play a huge role. And some things which, like as I mentioned, like of course trying to gather information beforehand would help. Also, like for example, just looking at how the breakdown of the lab is in terms of how international it is. I think that already gives you a very good idea that everyone from very different backgrounds are able to come here and feel comfortable. So that it's already a very good sign. But if you see that a lab is very heavily focused along one lines, then yeah, you have to be careful that if you don't belong with that background, it will be just difficult for you to adjust, because then the expectations are set based on that. So I think just by some initial or prior research, it is possible to have an idea. Yeah.
Cool. So when you finished your PhD thing, like as you just said, maybe at that point you didn't knew much about Denmark, like in terms of language I'm saying. Then why did you go for Denmark, or is it something that you just applied for a position?
So I think there one of the main, like I think that decision was more inspired from personal life than professional life, because my then fiance, now wife, she was also doing the PhD in the same institute. So I think both of us now she's a postdoc at Stanford as well. So both of us did know that we want to move to because we met in the US, so we wanted to move back to the US for our postdocs.
Wow.
But then it wasn't a good timing in terms of me moving back then, because she still had like a year to go. So I had to find something which was around, and I felt that I didn't want to stay in the Netherlands straight after, because I did my PhD there and I wanted to change just to explore other systems, other cultures and everything. So it would have been a lot more easier for me to just stay in Netherlands. So I wanted to, I just wanted to explore something more. But then I had a range in terms of the distance that I could travel to, and Denmark was within that range. So that's how I ended up being there. That was one position which actually I didn't send cold email. That was through job portal. I saw an opening and I applied for that. I think that was one factor. But also the other thing that I should mention is that the system in Netherlands allows, so a lot of countries doesn't have the flexibility in terms of how you finish your PhD. So what I'm getting at is, like, even though my contract had finished in Netherlands, I still hadn't submitted my thesis. So I could do my thesis. Like I took, like, I think I had submitted my thesis before I started my postdoc in Denmark, but I still didn't have the approval on the thesis, and I still didn't have the defense date. So I think I submitted my thesis in July 2023, and I started my position in September. But then I was still waiting on the administrative processes, and that in Netherlands at times can take long. But the flexibility allowed me to just start a new position while I was waiting. So I didn't have to really wait for my PhD degree to start my postdoc position. So that's why I think that was another advantage for being in that region. For example, if I wanted to come to the US, that wouldn't have been possible, because here for postdoc positions, they would need the PhD degree. So that was another thing that rather than wasting the next 3-4 months while waiting for the PhD, I could just look for positions around that would allow me to start well in advance. And all of these factors combined, Denmark happened.
So now from Denmark to US, obviously it was more on the basis of personal experience as well. So now, like, what is the biggest cultural or systematic difference you have noticed in terms of research funding between EU and US?
That's a very good question. I think there are quite a few. Like, the first thing I should mention that I haven't been very largely involved in the grant writing process, because it's usually the PIs that do it. I did write for one grant for the fellowship that I have right now. But then other than that, I don't have massive experience. I can't really compare in terms of admin uh, processes that's involved. But I think like there are similarities in terms of both places. The PI's main purpose or main job is to keep writing the grants, because that's what keeps the lab running, and the success rates are so low that they have to just constantly keep doing that. And that's something very similar in both places. From my personal experience, I since I don't have the background of doing this massively myself, I can't really say this with confidence. But from what I've observed, I feel that a lot of grants in Europe are based on European consortiums, European collaborations which are established before the grant, because since they're funded by the European Union, they want to show collaborations, strong collaborations between different countries, different universities in different countries, and these have to be established beforehand. I think in the US as well, I know that different universities work together, but it's always very US focused. So the universities are always within the US, and it's not very focused on international collaboration. But the thing is, like, since the US is so huge, you don't really need that. But yeah, I feel that the European consortium system really promotes international collaborations that should be established beforehand to be successful in big European grants.
Oh, I mean, even as you mentioned regarding grant, I mean, winning the NWO Rubisco grant and even NIH funded environment, I feel like it's maybe a dream for many people out there. So, and since you mentioned like you had a small part in grant writing, obviously it's mostly about the PI who just looks at the after process, but also like since you have so much experience with that, what makes a research proposal like stand out to such prestigious committee? I mean, that would be a question for a lot of people out there.
That's a question from me as well. I'm still figuring out the answer to that.
But even as someone who has experience or been in multiple positions, what do you think? Because you must have written research proposal out there even when you have sent application. What is the one thing which you feel that can be, because I mean everyone is learning, but still you have that experience, so you can just tell on that part.
Yeah, like I think if you ask this question even to maybe the seasoned professors, no, but I think even the early career professors, it's a really unpredictable game, the grant writing process. And at times I do wonder, like, is it like I think different organizations have different focus. I think, for example, like, I might be wrong, but if I remember correctly, like if you compare NIH and NSF in the US, NIH is more translational focused, and NSF is more fundamental science focused. So then you have to curate your grant in that direction. Like if you do the other way around, then it would either be too fundamental or either be too translational for the organization. So you have to have at least a notion of what the funding organization prefer. And then a lot of times I feel that it's not really about finding the solution. So when you're proposing it's again my personal opinion, I feel like it's not that for each proposal you have to find a brand new solution. Sometimes it's just about finding a new problem where your existing solution can fit in. Because you already have developed the technologies, you have already developed the techniques, you have already mastered that in your lab. But can the same approach can be applied to a new question? So how I like to think about it is like you already have the key. Now you go around looking for the lock, like where the same key can fit in. And I think, that's also equally fine, because it's not that you have to come up with brilliant approaches for solving each problem, because a lot of times the same problem, like same solution, can be applied to multiple problems, but then people haven't really thought about this new approach of solving this new problem. Yeah, so I think this is another way of thinking. Looking
I
at
think that would definitely, like, this kind of thing, like, maybe I don't think so. People must think about that, as whenever a research proposal comes in someone's head, they mostly think about like proper, which I want to just be the solution of whatever the professor is working on the research question. And
Mhm.
even though if you are applying for as a master student, like, you need to know a lot about the lab and about the working that they are doing. Um, so I mean that would definitely help. I think many people in that case.
Mhm.
I mean, but still, I just feel like even though like research proposal, SOP writing, and even like cover letters, I think that should be like a small session in every college so that the student have clarity on. And I always have like, because when I was a student, I didn't get anything from my professors or anyone. There was like mostly they were pushing, I have seen working in labs. I've seen people around my college, which I particularly belong to a tier 3 college. The teachers and even the PAs were mostly in India. I have seen one thing that they mostly tend to go towards the PhD side of it, and that too mostly they just still go towards the institute side of it. That to the host institute,
Mhm.
just because I feel like they don't want to explore. They don't even feel the tendency to tell a student that okay, you can just go for this internship. And
Mhm.
there are many. I think only the top tier colleges maybe help out in that. But I like
Mhm.
why I'm talking like this, just because I've seen like on daily basis we have around I would say 200 plus cold emails for job. They want to seek jobs, and whenever I read their even mails, or even if I see their CV, that is not even to the expected level of a master student.
Mhm.
So that is one thing which I feel in India, that problem should be solved, at least on the level any professor can do that. uh,
Mhm.
I was recently talking with one professor. He just told me the same thing, and he is trying to solve that problem. I feel like that is one thing, if someone like work on that part, that can be one of the best thing. uh,
Mhm.
okay, like currently you are in Stanford. I mean that is also one of the like there is like mostly whenever someone hears name, it's mostly a dream of many people. So like obviously not a young Shivesh must have thought that he would be there in Stanford doing postdoctoral fellow. Like now what after that? I mean,
Mhm.
what are you thinking in terms of like research wise? Is it like a plan or like what?
Yeah, so I think it brings us back to all the discussions that we had about how luck plays a role in each new adventure that we have to start. So it's the same mechanism back that we'll
Hmm.
have again. So once this position ends, or while it's ending, yeah, I have to get into the system. Hope I do all my parts well, but then also hope everything else is aligned
Hmm.
in terms of the new position, because I want to stay in research. That's my topmost priority, to stay in academia. And the next logical step would be to have my own independent lab. But that would mean that I need to apply to universities, apply to other grants,
Yeah.
and see if the university has an opening for a lab that I like, for a lab to work on that I want to do.
Hmm.
And then if am I the best candidate to do that research in that university? So first of all, if the university is willing to invest in this field of
Hmm.
research, and if so, how many other interested people are around?
Hmm.
So yeah, I feel like um, at least when you're looking for positions like PhD position, postdoc position, or even a master's intern position, you have a lot of labs to choose from. Like once you know that, oh, this is a topic that I want to
Yeah.
work on. Um, Whereas now you have to see how many universities are actually hiring in that cycle, and how
Hmm.
many grants that are available. So the margin of error is even smaller now. So I think, yeah, the the higher you progress in the research career, it just
Hmm.
uh, keeps getting a bit more difficult in terms of uh, I wouldn't say opportunities, but in terms of the process that's involved. But then it's like a added, I don't know, excitement in the process, because it means that I could be anywhere. Like I just don't know where I would be, but then it also opens up
Yeah.
the entire box of opportunities. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like the good thing is that we aren't really geographically bound. It's not that
Mm-hmm.
we are attached to the US. Of course, we do have a preference to go back to Europe and, if possible, to Netherlands. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, let's see where it like takes us.
I mean, when I was just looking at your profile, I was like, I mean, this guy is like doing research but like traveling, because I think you have mostly traveled around Europe and then US, and then also you did some part in I think that was not mentioned in your profile. Like you have been in Morocco, you have been in Singapore. How has it been like going? Like obviously the main motto was research, but how is it like being in several places, being in environment? Because what I feel like obviously it must be in you that obviously you like to explore different culture as well, in terms of not only in terms of research but also culture. Because I've seen people sticking only to like 2 3 countries just because only because of research, proper research. But do you feel like in that comes in your personality that you also like to explore some different cultures?
Yeah, so actually, like, it has been that I've been for guest lectures a couple of times to universities in India, and the
Mm-hmm.
first slide that I start with is the slide with pictures of different places, because I feel that uh, research, of course, allows you to do excellent science, but it allows you to travel wherever you want. Like your CV
Mm-hmm.
becomes like a passport for you.
Hmm.
So for me, that was one of the biggest advantages as well of research. I have always enjoyed traveling, and
Mm-hmm.
of course, like this profession allows me to do that, spend multiple years in different places, um, gain the experience not just in the lab but also on the cultural side, and I think that really helps you to grow overall. I should also add here, like, while being in research, you you are constantly going to conferences which are all over the world as well. So the traveling
True.
aspect will be a core entity of a researcher's life. So if that's something that you enjoy along with science, then it's a perfect combination.
Wow. Like, uh, I mean that's such a good thing, because I've seen really less profile being in several part of the world, and then like even continuing research and with such a great passion, I would say.
Mhm.
Um, like okay, let me just ask it. Have you ever thought of coming back to India? I mean, in terms of doing research or even being a professor, because according to your profile, it would be very easy to get like assistant professorship, or even you can be like. Have you ever thought coming back to India?
I think first of all, I don't think it's that easy. I think Indian market is also very competitive, uh, especially now that a lot of uh, Indians abroad are looking for opportunities to go back. So I think it is difficult, and as I mentioned, like a lot of things depends on your network.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think in that case, I don't really have a very strong network within this field in India. Like I know a couple of professors, but then a person who did a bigger chunk of their research within this field will have a much stronger network. So yeah, I don't think like I will have it that easy. Talking about if I have thought about it, yes, like I would love to go back to India, but it's not that straightforward because my wife is from Mexico, so we have to also consider that aspect. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if I think both of us find an opportunity that really allows us to do the kind of
Mm-hmm.
research that we want, then for sure we are open to that. But it's a bit more complex decision for
Obviously.
us if it was just me, like compared to the fact that it was just me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like that's for sure one of the options that we do have in mind. But yeah, let's see. Also, yeah, I think in India there are, I think especially now that I was reading, there was a new program that India has been planning to launch where they want to bring back 120 scientists in the
Yeah.
next coming years. I think it's called uh, PMRC,
I
or it's
I mean that
PMC.
was. that was under construction. Even I think there is like a good decision making that is going on over that, uh,
Mhm.
as far as my knowledge.
Mhm.
Um, okay, I mean that would be that question just came from inside or not uh, much related. Okay, I mean let's just talk from a student POV, like to the people who would be watching. What is the one mistake that someone can do while writing a cold email to any professor? See, since
Uh,
when you were applying, I know that there was no AI. Even when I was applying, there was no AI at that time. Like and that,
Mhm.
in your time it was like nothing was like that. Right now
Yeah.
I've seen many people using AI, and it's very simple to just decode, like if this mail is written by AI or it is written by human, like it's very easy. Whenever we
Yeah.
read, it's just very simple. And for a professor, I would say, or for someone who is working in research, it's much more easier because they understand the scientific languages whenever someone is writing that. What
Yeah.
is the one mistake which you personally feel while writing a cold email someone can do?
I will start with the most basic one, and it's really surprising that it still happens. And that's like starting an email with "Hello, sir," "Hello, ma'am," or just "Dear Professor."
Yeah.
Because, like, if I receive those emails, I would still respond back something. But I'm sure, like, someone who is at a senior position level, like professor level, they don't have
Mhm.
time to even read the next sentence because
True.
that just means that the same email was copy pasted. Like you don't
Yeah.
even need to look into the email
Hmm.
after the first sentence. So I think that's the most basic one because you're forcing the person to just not even read the first sentence
Hmm.
that you wrote. Uh, but other than I feel that uh, I've seen emails where the entire three paragraphs remains the same and just five keywords have been inserted in different places of the three paragraphs. And
Hmm.
that's also very easy to detect. Yeah, that's something again which I would really advise against because in the end, as I mentioned before, eh, the more tailored it is, the higher the chances are. So it's more about the quality than the quantity. Like sending
True.
100 emails in that format, you might receive like five responses, but I'm very sure that even those will be negative because it's really
Hmm.
like people can judge based on
Hmm.
how it has been framed. So at times it's just, the whole point of the cover email, like that's how I see it now. The whole point of the cover email is it to be exciting enough for the professor to click on your CV. That's it. You don't have to
Hmm.
do much on the email because if you have aroused the interest of the professor, he will click on the CV and he will have all the information that he needs on the CV. So the
Hmm.
whole point
True.
of the cover email is to put information that you think is important for that one single click. That's it. Like
Hmm.
you don't have to list your entire life history. You don't have to list what you're going to bring to the lab or what
Hmm.
excites. Like it maybe if you think it's important for that click, yes, please do it. But if you think it's just to fill the space, then it's not needed. At times, I've seen even just one paragraph works amazing.
True.
Uh, yeah, so I think I would really and like if you feel that oh the professor would feel that the student didn't put in extra efforts, then in that case you can prepare a separate cover letter which you can attach with your CV where you can put all the words in with what you want to do, what
True.
you can do that. But then the cover email, the whole point is for the professor to see if he wants to click on your CV. That's it. Yeah.
Hmm. Wow. I mean, very much related with your thoughts. My thoughts are also
Mhm.
like that. Um,
Yeah.
okay. Even like, okay, let's just talk. As I said, talk like a student. For example, if I'm sending 50 emails, I'm not getting responded. See, obviously it's a luck as we just talked about. Maybe it's a little
Mhm.
bit of luck. you are just sending it, and I've seen many people being demotivated just by sending like 40 emails, 50 emails, and they are like, they are not like, I'm getting negative response. It might be because of the funding issue, because even today there are few websites which are not updated in terms of the positions, or even in terms of funding. So if they are getting rejected, if the mail is not working, then how should someone, like, I personally suggest, like, if your profile is good, if you think like you have a good amount of research background, or even if you feel that you really want to work in someone's lab, I mean, let's just follow up. Also, yeah, one more thing just came in my mind. What do you think about following up? If your mail is not getting seen, what should be a duration after which someone should follow up?
Yeah, so that's one mistake that I have done myself. Uh, as a student, I think this was in Boston when I was applying for research assistant positions. Um, and to be very honest, I think probably that was the period where I sent the most emails. I was receiving very good response. Like the rate of response was very good, but then because of the administrative complications involved,
Yeah.
it just took a lot of discussions with different people to realize where I can go in terms of the logistics, in terms of the visa. But yeah, like back then when I sent those emails, I didn't know how much should I follow, because as I mentioned, like the whole Boston position it happened really quick. I didn't have to send a lot of emails, and the network helped. So I didn't follow up. So I didn't really learn that lesson back then. And during the research assistant search, I think probably in the initial trials, maybe I was following up in 2 or 3 days. And then one of the professors actually responded that you have to give some time for people to, like I was going to respond, but you don't have to be pushing for it within 3 days or 2 days. So I think, like, if you send an email on Wednesday, I think probably you can follow up on Tuesday. Almost a week, maybe a day less, 5 to 6, like, I wouldn't say 5 days, 6 days. Not any shorter. A week is also fine. And I have always seen that the rate of receiving response back is much higher when you follow up. And it happens with me as well. If I receive an email and I have seen it and I have thought about, I will respond to it, but then I just forget. But then when the person reaches out again, I'm like, oh, wait, I've thought about it. Now I'll just do it right now, because otherwise I'll forget. So yeah, like you should always follow up at least 2 times. So in total, you're sending 3 emails, in my opinion. I wouldn't do more than that. Like if you really, really want, then probably after a month or 2 months, you can send the 3rd follow-up. But yeah, I think more than 4 emails is not good. Like you don't want to be blacklisted either.
Yeah, I mean, that is...
The other thing that I have regarding follow-up that I would advise against, and this has happened, if you reached out to the professor and you're waiting for a response, don't reach out to a lab member asking why is the professor not responding, because it's not going to help
that
you.
That really happens?
It has happened, yes. It has happened with me, and that really doesn't help, because the PhD or postdoc would then reach out to the professor, and the professor is just going to be annoyed.
Obviously.
So it's so I think don't do that either. Like unless you have reached out like multiple times, maybe like the 3 times that we talked about, and then you still want to know what's going on, then you can just reach out to a PhD or postdoc just to understand, not really asking them to forward your email, because it doesn't help.
I mean, see, you have been, in terms of research wise, a little lucky that you got your research interest back then. Maybe even like my in terms of my research career is just nothing. Okay, but even I was lucky that I figured out that I want to work in cancer. There are people out there who just don't know what to exactly to do, what exactly to work on. Uh, and that is a major problem I feel in India, because tier 2, tier 3 people who are being in their masters and are not secured any good national level internships or even working. So how should someone figure out interest? I honestly give just one advice, because until you work you will never realize your research interest. That's how
Exactly.
simple it is. uh,
Exactly. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
there is then, like, if someone is not getting opportunity, then what? I mean, I just, there is no like particular answer to that apart from that, like, you can just work out. Like, do you have anything more to add on to that part?
Yeah, I think like as you said, like you have to get involved in the research to really see if you enjoy doing it. Uh, and like for example, even in my case, when I was doing the research in Boston, I just felt that I didn't have enough experience to make the call of doing the PhD right away. Because I remember like so I was there from like January to December, so 1 full year. And towards the end of December, a lot of people were suggesting me that I should apply for the US PhD, the
Mm-hmm.
grad school admissions at that point. And I just didn't feel that I was ready because I didn't know if I knew enough. I didn't know if my profile was strong enough because
Yeah.
now I want to switch my fields. Uh, so even when you're doing it, it takes time to really know that you're enjoying this and you want to pursue
Mm-hmm.
this. But as you mentioned, the first step is to find a place where you can do it. And if it needs to be done remote, like I don't know, remotely helps slightly, but like you just take all the efforts that you can to find a place that will allow you to
Mm-hmm.
do it. And if it needs for you to go to the extra mile, like if it needs you to sacrifice your summer vacation and winter vacation, you have to do it, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Do you feel one more thing? Like, when you are in research, you don't have to think about the money that you are earning. Is it one thing that you just feel? Like, because there are many people who just think like that. So yeah,
Yeah, so I think there, if money is the thing that you have in mind, then probably research
it's not for
is
you.
not is not the topic that you should think about because things like that's another thing that things are very different in different places.
True.
I feel, for example, in Netherlands, that can go hand in hand. Like as a PhD, you actually are making more than the national average and things like that. So there, you can put them in the same bracket in terms of like you can be doing research and you're still making good money. Um, but I think overall, it's never going to be like you should never be in research for the money. Like that's always the case, unless you become super big professors in the US, and
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, then it becomes far more easier.
Yeah.
But overall, yeah, I wouldn't advise anyone to get into research if they are looking at the financial aspect because it's a lot of investment in terms of your time and efforts.
True.
And I think if you want that for money, you could make a lot more by doing many other things. So yeah, this
Mm.
as a motivation should not it wouldn't work out, and you will be just frustrated by the end of it.
100%. Yeah. Like, when you look at your personal journey, what is the one thing that you feel like you could have done differently, or is it like everything has fallen in place? Is there anything that you feel at some point in your career wise that you made a slight mistake or you could have changed?
Like I don't have huge big regrets. Like
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been like yeah, I don't think like I feel that oh maybe I'm in the wrong place. No, like I feel that everything has fallen in place. But I do maybe I would share uh, a phase that I went through. Not many people know about this. Maybe just me and my PhD supervisors. And this was during the end of my PhD, and I was really enjoying what I was doing. I really enjoyed tissue engineering, and I felt that the work that we did was amazing, and I see I saw the potential and everything. But then I still felt that I wanted, even that the feeling is still the same, but now I look at it differently. So back then I felt that I am trying to solve problems using tissue. So the first thing is like, one of my main motivations to do research is also to create solutions that can help human health or human life in general. I think that's one of the main motivations that I feel that allows me to do what I do. And that was one of the main reasons why, like, coming from electrical engineering and chemistry, entering this field motivated me, because I felt like if I was just doing pure chemistry or pure electrical, it wouldn't be as relevant in terms of, I'm like, in my head back then, it wouldn't be as relevant in terms of creating an impact on human lives. So towards the end of my PhD, this feeling got stronger in terms of, like, yes, I am trying to improve human life, but then the amount of improvement that I'm bringing in maybe is not as impactful. Maybe there are other problems that I should look at where this impact could be bigger. And for me, it was like, okay, I'm improving the hearing of a person. I'm repairing their eardrum, and I'm improving their quality of life, but I'm not really drastically changing the life of someone in need. Someone in India who doesn't even have access to clean water or clean air. Like, I'm not solving those kind of problems. So is it really worth for me to put in all my efforts to improve someone's life by 5%, or should I focus on bigger problems? So there was this phase where I had discussions with my PhD advisors, and I was like, I don't know, like, I do like research. I want to stay in academia. I want to continue with my research. But then, am I going in the right direction in terms of the problems that I'm solving? And the Denmark position happened, which I mentioned was because I applied for through a job portal. And with time, I realized that, like, I cannot now suddenly go and purify water and clean air. So I have to find those bigger impactful problems within the things that I have been doing for the last 10 years, because this is what I know, and it's a lot more easier for me to create an impact within this domain. And there are, of course, a lot of bigger problems that maybe so far I haven't looked at, but then I just need to broaden my view to identify those problems. So like, it hasn't been that, oh, I found this dream topic and I've been just going. Like, there have been phases where I have been doubtful, like, am I doing enough in terms of where I started? But like, I think it's a process, and I think over time I will have probably again these questions, I'm sure. And I think I personally feel that it's a good thing, because then it keeps pushing you to improve or to think more about what you can do in comparison to what you're doing right now. So so I think overall, it's not this like, it's not like one smooth ride, but then it's going up, so it's improving.
But I mean, coming across to that question, do you at any point in your terms of research wise, you thought that you had a thing in your mind that I can quit this? No. About it. That's really a good thing.
No, like,
because,
quitting research, like not doing research.
I mean research or whatever the topic that you were currently doing, like as just you mentioned, but it was not that high that you think about it quitting.
Like, it was never about quitting research. It was like that entire discussion was more like, how can I make my research more impactful? Like, what else can I do to make it more impactful and I think back then it was more like, it hasn't changed, that I think maybe I should add it, like, when I was finishing when you're finishing a PhD, you feel like, like, what else can I do for this society? You can call it a bit more naive approach, but then it's like the intention was and is that you want your research to have like some usefulness. And
Yeah,
I
obviously.
completely respect people uh, who do research just for understanding how something works. And to be very
Hmm.
honest, like in Stanford, I have got into that mindset slightly. I have one of the projects where I'm really looking at fundamental side of science, and I enjoy. But at the same time, it's also slightly selfish because it's I am gaining that knowledge, and of course, I will share that knowledge with people. But it's not
Hmm.
that money that was invested. It's for expanding the knowledge, but it's not going to have an immediate impact on the society.
True.
So, yeah, yeah, I think to your question that uh, if that's no, like there have been topics or projects which I felt less motivated about, and um, I think back it's very similar to what we have been talking about. It's like when I was in
Hmm.
Barcelona during my research assistant position, I was working on biohybrid robotics. So it's using tissue engineering to create soft robots. And then I felt that uh, it's very cool how you can move things just using cells, just by stimulating the
Hmm.
cells. But I felt like, what is the application? And I completely understand, like we are focusing on developing these technologies, these techniques, and someone else will come into the picture and tell us, oh,
Yeah.
we can use this for that. But I felt like I want to do my PhD on a topic where I felt that I'm really contributing uh, to improve some certain aspect of life, and not hoping that someone comes into the picture to tell where my science can be used. So I think that was one thing, and that's why in the lab that I was in, I had actually two fellowships, from one from Spanish government, one from Catalan government, that would have allowed me to continue my research as a PhD. But
Hmm.
I just felt that I need something with, like what I said in my interview actually was, I need something with a stronger biological relevance, like stronger clinical relevance.
Hmm.
And that's when yeah, I looked for other opportunities, and Netherlands happened.
Hmm. What would you say to someone who is currently in their BSc or MSc? Like last advice to them for their research journey?
Huh. I think you have to find opportunities in terms of real lab experience. I think that's the most important aspect. Like I I I don't know if I should say this, but like for me, for example, like all my summer and winter vacations was doing some internship.
Hmm.
So all of them. And I felt that really helped me to also understand what I like and what I don't like. Because as you mentioned, like maybe not all universities have the research facilities that would allow you to work in a lab during your coursework, but you do have 3 months in the summer and 1 month
Yeah.
in the winter where you have the flexibility to go anywhere. And none of the professors in any of the top universities in India would, like, of course, they might have uh, space issues, but now there are so many good institutions in India that you will for sure find at least one lab for each of your summer. And the CSIR labs, like there are
Yeah.
34 institutes. So for sure, there is something waiting for you. You just have to take the effort, use your network. You can, like, for example, during my undergrad, like during the BITS time, um, for one of the internships, I wanted to focus on chemistry, and I was like, maybe I can use my professor's network to
Hmm.
find an internship abroad. And my professor, she did her postdoc in South Korea, and she very happily reached out on my behalf to the professor, and they accepted. But then it was a
Hmm.
non-funded position. We didn't have the money for me to go there, so
Yeah.
I didn't go. But then what I'm trying to imply is, like, even in your universities, maybe there would be one professor that would be willing to just put you in touch with someone in a better university in India if your university is not that great, and you can use that network just to to have an internship. So I think overall it's like really it it I think nothing is more important than having those experiences. And I might be wrong, or people might have different opinion, but I feel that those internships have been, or those lab experiences that I had also while working in the labs at BITS, were more impactful than the coursework I did. Like I learned more, that those have been a lot more helpful in my career so far than the actual courses. So for sure, like they should just look for those opportunities and go for it.
Also, for someone like people maybe think like they don't come from a proper financial background. Is it feasible for them to find positions and just go abroad? This is just a question which I think many people would face in India, because even convincing their parents is a big thing, at least in India. Talking about, and even the financial thing. But so, what are your views? Like, if someone is coming from a very decent background financially, is it feasible for them to go abroad?
That's a very, very good question, and it's very relevant to my experience as well. Yeah, honestly, like I was very lucky in that sense, because when I mentioned to you about the Caltech position through the senior that I had, one of the main aspects that Bio didn't work out was because the financial aspect. The lab wasn't going to fund, and living in California was just out of the question. In Boston, I was very, very lucky because I had a cousin that was living in there, and the whole, like for me, for my parents, it was just easier to allow that transition because I was going to stay with him, and then eventually I ended up staying the entire year with him. So if that wasn't a possibility, it would have been, maybe the situation would have been very different. I wouldn't have gone to Boston. Maybe I would have been doing something else today. So like I think the financial aspect for these positions does play a role, and even in my case, I think without the help from friends and family, I think it would have been difficult overall. But I don't think I think things are a bit better in terms of funding today than what it was 10 years ago. Like there are a lot more opportunities. Like I just see even like what students have an offer from BITS, like in terms of scholarships and fundings and fellowship. Of course, I'm not saying they're not competitive, but there are more opportunities. Students have more opportunities to be aware of them as well. So I think, it is still very possible to go for them because of the opportunities that's available in terms of different scholarships and fellowships. And especially like if you want to go to Europe, each of the European or even Canada, they have different summer internships program. I think that for sure helps.
Cool. I think I'm done with all my questions. And also one more thing I would just like to add. I mean, I've talked with many people, probably more than thousands of people since I've come in life science thing. I've probably talked with many researchers across India, across abroad. But one thing which I feel for you, like when you were even talking about your research, like that just so passionate that you are still pursuing, or you want to, and that too for public health. I mean, that really, it's like hats off to that and to the passion that you are currently following. I mean, thank you so much for saying yes to it. And yeah.
Thank you so much for the kind words. And I really enjoyed the discussion as well. It was really nice chatting with you.